Flight and Mission Control as Flight Director John Shannon oversees activities. Columbia having a very smooth descent toward Florida. Speed now 13,900 miles per hour. 1,630 miles to touchdown at the Kennedy Space Center as Columbia approaches the Texas border. Altitude 3,000 feet or about 223,000 feet or about 42 miles. Be now going into its second bank, the second of four it will perform to slow down as it continues its descent toward Florida. This a bank to the right. Wings angled steeply at about 70 degrees to horizontal. Speed now 12,400 miles per hour. This a view of Columbia from a camera located here at the Johnson Space Center. Columbia's speed at 12,300 miles per hour, altitude 39 miles, 1,130 miles to touchdown at the Kennedy Space Center. Columbia currently in a right bank, wings angled 64 degrees to horizontal as it continues to descend into the atmosphere and slow down. Again, this is a view of Columbia.
Houston, you look great passing over Houston right now. Beautiful shot.
Copy that.
Again, this is a view of Columbia from...
Look pretty good too, Scooter.
That's a call from pilot Jeff Ashby as Columbia is in a steep right bank with his window pointing down toward the ground. Columbia's altitude 38 statute miles, speed 11,500 miles per hour. Less than 1,000 miles to touchdown at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida now as it continues across East Texas. This is a view of the horizon and Houston looking north from the Johnson Space Center as Columbia passes overhead. 37 miles above East Texas, traveling at 16 times the speed of sound, equivalent to about 10,800 miles per hour. Columbia continuing in the second of four banks it will perform as it approaches Florida to slow down. Banking to the right, wings angled about 60 degrees to horizontal. Altitude now 36 miles. Speed 10,150 miles per hour. This a view from a camera here at the Johnson Space Center. Looking to the north, Columbia's track taking it across East Texas, crossing the Texas-Louisiana border. Now heading out above New Orleans and Baton Rouge, about to cross off the coast of Louisiana. Altitude now 32 miles or 168,000 feet. Speed 6,900 miles per hour. 430 miles to touchdown at the Kennedy Space Center. Columbia's speed now Mach 8, 8 times the speed of sound, or 5,600 miles per hour. Altitude 29 miles, 153,000 feet, 320 miles to touchdown at the Kennedy Space Center. Shape as it continues its descent toward Florida. Speed now 4,500 miles.
Columbia, Houston, energy, ground track, and nav are all go. We're expecting a touchdown at 2,800 feet at 195 knots.
And Columbia copies all.
That call from Capcom Scott Altman to Columbia that it's right on course, altitude and speed for its approach to Florida at this point. Altitude 25 miles, speed 4,100 miles per hour, 213 miles to touchdown on runway 33. Columbia continuing in a right bank, wings angled about 40 degrees to horizontal as it approaches the Florida coast, the Gulf Coast, crossing that about just north of the Tampa Bay area, en route to the Kennedy Space Center. As Columbia approaches the Kennedy Space Center, it will perform a right overhead 236-degree turn.
Houston, you have a go to take air data.
Columbia is taking air data.
That call to Columbia that they can use navigation information from probes deployed on the nose of the spacecraft. Those air data probes provide supplemental information on altitude and wind speed derived from barometric pressure and airspeed. Columbia speed 1,700 miles per hour, or 2.5 times the speed of sound. Altitude 82,000 feet. This a view from onboard Columbia, looking out the pilot's heads-up display. A display view out the front window, used by the pilots as they align in a final approach toward the runway. Continue to see television from onboard Columbia. This a view from the heads-up display in the cockpit. Altitude now 72,000 feet. Speed Mach 1.5, or about 1,000 miles per hour. About 44 miles to touchdown on the shuttle landing facility runway now. As Columbia drops below Mach 1 and goes subsonic, Commander Eileen Collins will take over control of the
Columbia Houston, we show you on energy approaching the hack. Winds are now 200 at 3, peak 8, which is 2 peak 6 on the tail and also 2 peak 6 from the left. We'd like a nominal drag chute deploy.
Columbia copies all.
This is a view of Columbia now from infrared trackers near the Kennedy Space Center as it approaches. Range to touchdown now. About 33 miles. About to go subsonic. Again, Commander Eileen Collins will take over control of Columbia's approach as it goes subsonic, flying at around a 236-degree right turn to align with runway 33. That turn around the heading alignment cylinder, an imaginary cylinder created by the microwave scan beam landing system at the shuttle landing site, an aid to approach and landing at the runway. Columbia now with wings level as it approaches that heading alignment cylinder and the beginning of that right overhead turn to align with runway 33. Commander Eileen Collins now at the helm of Columbia and control as it approaches the runway. Speed 540 miles per hour. Altitude 40,000 feet. Columbia now beginning a right turn around the heading alignment cylinder. Again, a 236-degree turn to align with runway 33 as Commander Eileen Collins guides Columbia its descent toward the runway. Altitude now 32,000 feet. Speed 500 miles per hour. Columbia's descent at a rate 7 times that of a standard commercial airliner.
Columbia, Houston, we see you on at the 180.
Columbia copy, sign at the 180.
This a view from the heads-up display on board as Collins continues around a right turn to align with the runway. This a view of the Kennedy Space Center below and the surrounding area. Altitude 22,000 feet. 100 degrees to go in this turn to align with runway 33.
Columbia, Houston, you are on at the 90.
Columbia, on at the 90.
That call from Capcom Scott Altman that Columbia is right on target with 90 degrees to go in this turn to align with the runway. Altitude 16,000 feet. Speed 420 miles per hour. Again, this is a view from the heads-up display, a display in front of the pilot on board.
Houston, Columbia has the runway in sight.
Roger, runway in sight, Columbia.
As Columbia moves in sight of the runway. Now aligning with the center of runway 33. Altitude 8,000 feet. Speed 390 miles per hour. Altitude 5,000 feet. $4,000 feet. $2,000 feet. Altitude now 1,000 feet. Commander Eileen Collins guiding Columbia onto the shuttle landing facility runway. Landing gears down and locked. Touchdown, main gear touchdown for Columbia. Drag chute deploy. Columbia home, completing a mission that made history and opened a new eye on the universe.
Houston, Columbia, wheel stop.
Roger, wheel stop, Columbia. Welcome home. Eileen, to you and the crew, just an outstanding job deploying Chandra and bringing Columbia home for a beautiful landing. There are no deltas. We'll meet you in the post-landing.
Copy, no post-landing deltas. And we'll go to the entry checklist.
Columbia's wheel stop now on runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center.
And Houston, ammonia A is going to secondary on.
Columbia, Houston, we copy. Columbia, Houston, the safety assessment is complete now. You have a go to doff suits.
Copy, we have a go to doff suits.
Orbiter for a handover to the convoy. We'll now go to the Operations Control Center for the Chandra X-ray Observatory, which remains in orbit, an orbit with a high point of more than 44,000 miles, for a wrap-up of activities from that control room in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
And this is Chandra Control Cambridge. The flight operations team here in Cambridge continues its initial verification of the sophisticated components and systems of the Chandra X-ray Observatory. From the time Chandra was powered up just an hour and a half after last Friday morning's launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia, activation of the world's largest and most powerful X-ray observatory has proceeded very smoothly. Team members here at the Operations Control Center in Cambridge spent the first 3 days after launch activating and checking out the operational systems of the Chandra spacecraft, and have now turned much of their attention to the observatory's science instruments. Over the past 2 days, controllers have started the power up and check out of Chandra's primary science instruments, the high-resolution camera, and the Advanced Charge-Coupled Device Imaging Spectrometer. Those activities continue tonight and will progress over the next several days. Highly elliptical orbit of the Earth, with its highest point or apogee still at 44,782 miles, and its perigee, the lowest point, at 2,134 miles. As we look back over the past 5 days, things have progressed exceptionally well. The liftoff of Columbia on the STS-93 mission set the stage for Chandra's mission of discovery. Then shortly after the opening of Columbia's payload bay, the flight operations team here sent its first commands to the Chandra spacecraft, powering up its systems in preparation for deployment. That deployment occurred on schedule without any hitches at 7:47 Eastern Daylight Time last Friday morning. An hour later, Chandra's twin rocket inertial upper stage propelled the observatory into an elliptical transfer orbit.
Program Integration Manager Bill Gerstenmaier, that originating from Houston on NASA television no earlier than 11:30 p.m. Central.
Okay, water pump loop 1 coming on.
Upon their arrival,
Contact.
Columbia ASP, Houston, we have you loud and
close-up of the right engine nozzle on Columbia. The nozzle suspected of a hydrogen leak during Columbia's climb to orbit.
Houston ASP, we're go for the back.
Vision is from the interior of one of the nozzles, the right-hand main engine nozzle on Columbia, that the nozzle with a suspected hydrogen leak during Columbia's climb to orbit.